Welcome back, everyone. Today I am here with Stacy Orsborn. Stacy is the co-founder and president of Fitness for VICTRESS MVMT. She is the creator of VICTRESS MVMT's first of its kind training methodology, now used in all VICTRESS locations. Stacy has a deep understanding and passion for supporting the ever-changing needs of female physiology. She has credentials as an ACE Orthopedic Specialist, an ACE Certified Personal Trainer. She's a Menopause Specialist. She's had birth doula training. The list goes on. Welcome, Stacy. I am so excited for you to be here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk. It's nice to meet you finally.
I know. So I want to dive into like all things women's health because I don't feel like women's health is talked about enough, emphasized enough. And most importantly, even when we do talk women's health, women's health looks very different for a woman at any age and stage in the process. So whether it's prenatal, whether it's postpartum, whether it's menopausal, aging, all of the things, and our bodies require different nutrition, different workouts, and all of the things. So I'm excited to dive into all of that with you today. So tell our listeners, what inspired you to do what you do? I mean, obviously you have a story, and a lot of times, when we get into our line of work, I find it so awesome to see people that are really passionate about their jobs, right? Like that you got into what you got into for a reason, and I
Right.
love to hear people's stories.
Yeah. So my story, I was not always like a very athletic person, athletically inclined. It's kind of funny now, like when my volleyball coach from high school like hears what I'm doing, he's like, what in the world? Like where was that girl in high school? But props to him. He stuck with me back then. But no, I mean, I grew up in a very Christian, sheltered, kind of one way of thinking. Girls weren't really allowed to like do some of the things in PE that the boys were allowed to do in my school, like all of those things. So I definitely wasn't exposed to the power of athletics as a woman until I started to get a little bit older. I actually went through a divorce from my first husband around the age of 23. And about that time, I started running. Like it was just kind of running became like my outlet. Running became my thing. Running was like the way that I felt like I could like move things through my body and stress and all of those different things. I had two little kids at the time. And that was just like my me time. And so as that progressed, I slowly started to make my way into weightlifting, and I started doing some CrossFit. And CrossFit was definitely an awesome experience, mainly for me at the time because it was such a focus on performance versus aesthetics. Like it was just, okay, like I just want to get stronger. I just want to get faster. I just want to learn a new skill. It was easy to just like let go of like, how does my body look? It was just, how is my body performing? And that really resonated with me, and that was something that I think really changed me long term and still sits with me today. And then I got pregnant with my third son. I met my husband and got pregnant with my third son, and he changed my life in a lot of different ways. I got pregnant, and I remember going to my fitness coach, or my coach at CrossFit at the time, and I was like, hey, like, I'm 6 weeks pregnant, like nobody really knows, but like I don't really care if people know. I just want to know what I should be doing. Like what should I do? What should I not do? That type of question. And he kind of looked at me with like a deer in the headlights, like, like I have no idea. And I was like, okay, well, that's good to know. So then I went to my midwife, and I had chosen to go with a midwife this route for my third son. And she was like, well, like, I think just keep doing what you've been doing. You're obviously very fit, like you're very strong, you're very healthy, like keep doing what you've been doing. And I was like, but do you know what I'm doing? Like, I don't know if that's the most appropriate thing for me to be doing while I'm pregnant, to be honest with you. So anyway, I went to social media, started trying to find as much information as I could. I stumbled upon an organization called BirthFit, and they had posted something that said, giving birth is the single most athletic event of your life. You should probably train for it. And it would just like lit me up inside. Like it was like, oh my gosh, that's what I'm looking for. Like, this is it. Like, that's what I need. I had run races, I had done CrossFit competitions, all of those things at that point. So to see something articulated in a way that I knew I could train for something, and feel like I had autonomy and a part of my birth process and my pregnancy, it was so empowering. So I followed their programming. I became and had a very close to delivery of exactly what I wanted. Not perfect, obviously, that's life, but it was definitely a very needed experience, very healing experience. I think that the power of natural childbirth sometimes gets taken away from women over the years, and I think that there is something very, very powerful when a woman is able to like realize what she is designed for, and can do. So I came out of that birth experience truly a changed person, and feeling that power and feeling that empowerment of not only my working out pre-pregnancy and then during pregnancy, but then obviously like using their guidance within postpartum and being able to be intentional and being slow and rehabilitating my core and really like establishing a mind body connection with my body. Within 6 months after delivery, I'm not saying this is the way it is for everybody, but within about 6 to 8 months post delivery, I was stronger than I'd ever been in my life at that point because of the intention and the slowness that I took leading out of my pregnancy. And I mean, I guess a very long story shorter, I ended up just wanting to pay it forward. Like, I was so passionate about the way that movement has changed who I was and how I show up in the world. I wanted to make sure that all women knew what this could do for you. From, training for performance to training for, a life event like birth or whatever it may be, to rehabilitating and doing things intentionally and meeting your body where it's at and being able to accommodate the changes in your body. Just really, really lit a fire under me. And I just knew that there was nothing like it in regards to like, this is 2017, 2018 at the time. Nobody was really talking about this type of stuff. So I started personal training out of that same gym. I became a birthday coach. I became a doula. I became, literally anything and everything I could get my hands on in regards to women's specific fitness. Stacy Sims and I like don't know each other, but I feel like I know her, the amount of work that I've like read and done with her. But I ended up taking a client on when I was about a year or about 6 months into training clients. I ended up taking on a client, and I was working full time at the time, and I decided that I wanted to like really step away from my job and do this full time. And that client ended up being a small business consultant, and she was like, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I was like, "Well, I think I'm going to do this." She's like, "Well, do you know what you need to do?" And I'm like, "No, I have no idea what I'm doing." So she ended up, we ended up creating the VICTRESS model and creating the VICTRESS plan, and she's now my business partner. So she has the business and I have the fitness, and we've been able to come together and, both of us having our own individual empowering experiences through movement, what has created VICTRESS into the world today. So
I love that. So to kind of circle back around to your third pregnancy.
yeah.
So I think what a lot of people need to understand about that, like what you just said about having your first two pregnancies and you didn't know, like you knew what you knew at that time in your life, you did what you did. And I can relate to that. My son's 16 now, and my pregnancy, what it was back then, ending in an emergency C-section because he was just too large for me to push out, versus how I would handle a pregnancy now in my life, what I would do to prepare, like a training, like you said, like, so it's not so much of, it's more adapting a lifestyle, right? So looking at it from, people that are, whether they're trying to get pregnant, looking to get pregnant, whatever stage in their pregnancy that they're in, it's almost like a training process where you're doing all the right things. Because taking it back to me, I know that I can't even remember to say, hey, what was my nutrition like? I thought I ate healthy and did the right things, but I don't think that I did, knowing what I know now. Back then I was a traditional Western medicine mom and pop pharmacist. Now I'm a, functional medicine pharmacist and try to do everything the natural way. Yes, sure, there's a time and a place for Western medicine, but, trying to keep the healthy lifestyle is now more of my path that I'm on. So when I think of that, and I think of maybe had I done things different, my weight would have been different. His size would have been different. Things would have been way different for me to be able, because I'm like, well, what if that was my plan to have birth naturally? And then when it got to the point of me actually going, I was starting to push, and they were like, his heart rate's dropping, we need to get him out now. And it was like, wait, I didn't prepare for this. I didn't read that part of the book. Like, I don't know what's happening.
Right.
you know?
Right.
So had I been doing different things along the way and keeping my body in shape, I feel like back then I was never like, I wasn't fit, I was active and kept busy and worked out, quote unquote. But perhaps had I done, I think when I got pregnant, with the exception of walking, I didn't do anything to keep my body the way that I should have. I must like stop, like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. Wait, I shouldn't be doing these things, and there was nobody to turn to ask to look. I think What to Expect When You're Expecting book was like the where to find all of your answers to back then, right?
Yeah.
So, it was like, I didn't know, and then you ask parents and moms, and that was from a whole nother generation of what are you talking about? So,
Yep.
like, I think that people having this experience where they know where to go to find the answers of what can I do to have a viable, healthy pregnancy where I'm doing the right things, so that in turn I can have that more natural birth, or whichever way somebody wants to go from that capacity, whatever their choice is. But training their body and keeping up with thinking, oh, I'm eating for two now, I've got to do this, that, and the other, like, I don't think that's the answer. So, what
Yeah.
in your experience from your first two pregnancies to your third pregnancy, like, what was the main thing that you learned or incorporated from beginning to end that you were like, what am I training for? How am I doing this? Like,
Right.
the difference.
No, I totally relate. My oldest just turned 16 2 days ago, so I get it. Like my first pregnancy, like literally like the exact same. I mean, granted, I was a baby, having a baby essentially. I was 21 at the time. But yeah, I mean, my first two pregnancies, I felt like, really just naive and very like blissfully ignorant, to be honest with you. And that was okay. Like that accommodated who I was and how I functioned in the world back then. My OB was great. He made like a comment, like I was induced with my first, not necessary, just got induced. With my second, it was kind of the same thing. I got really uncomfortable towards the end, and he was like, well, don't let them send you home. Like, we'll just induce you. So I was 7 days early, 10 days early. Again, just like, probably again, knowing what I know now, like those are things that probably wouldn't have been the best choices for me. And could have run some pretty serious risks. With my second, it's interesting. I remember I got pregnant, and I've always had this like, I was born in a birth center. So my mom had me in a birth center. And so I've always had this like little, I don't know, itch to like do it natural and see what, my body was capable of in that way. Um, and I remember going to my doctor's appointment with my second, and I was like, okay, so I think I want to do this natural. Like, I think, I'm 23 at the time, like walking in there, like telling this doctor, like, I think I want to do this natural. And he kind of looked at me, he's like, why? And I was like, well, like, I mean, I believe that my body is designed for this. My mom had me natural. Like, it'd be kind of cool to like see what I'm capable of in that way. And he was like, well, would you get your kidney out without anesthesia? And I was like, well, no. And he's like, well, you don't get an extra gold star for it. And I was like, oh. And then like at the time, like I laughed it off and just like kind of moved forward. But I still remember that. Like I never forgot that moment. Right. And
Not
that's something
cool.
that, no. And it just like sticks with you. Like I was trying to step into some kind of power at 23 years old. Like, I already had a 1 year old at the time. Like I'm trying to navigate this new world and like my body and like showing up for myself in this way. And he just like stomped on it. And I ended up almost having an emergency C-section with him. I didn't, luckily. I was fortunate to be able to avoid that. But yeah, then with my third, I mean, it had been about 7 years from the time that I had had my second to my third, when I got pregnant with my third. And it was, I don't know, like I think being strong and like doing CrossFit or, strength training in that way, and having done some half marathons and having like really felt myself what I was physically capable of, it made it me more inclined to like realize like the physicality of pregnancy and childbirth and postpartum. And it got me really excited to like really like feel like I had a role to play in it. And within the training approach that I took, like and that I still hold now with my prenatal members that we serve here, we're we're lifting heavy. Like we're going to lift as heavy as we can, on a scale of 1 to 10, we're going to keep you right above an 8, like right around an 8. Like we don't really want you heavier than that. But like we're lifting heavy and we're doing, 2 or 3 reps every minute on the minute or every 2 minutes. And we're practicing that adaptation of childbirth and that adaptation of that stress response of like, contraction coming in, baby's heart rate likes to decelerate in that stage. And then, the contraction goes away, heart rate comes back up. Well, the same thing happens when you're training that way. When you put yourself under that more intense load or, a sprint on a bike or something like that, you're having that baby gets that same adaptation. So not only are you physiologically training yourself, but you're also training your baby for those stress responses and those stress adaptations. So yeah, like I really leaned into all of it. And with my first two, I think I gained right around 60 pounds. I did not eat that healthy. I definitely enjoyed Arby's quite a bit back then. But with my third, like I would say I ate fairly healthy. I ate a lot of Chipotle, that's for sure. But we ate pretty healthy, moved very intentionally, very consistently. And I gained 19 pounds with him, and he was 9 pounds of it. So
Wow.
yeah, I mean, granted, I have to factor in like I probably lost some muscle mass in that process. So from like a fat to muscle distribution thing there, but I was in very good shape throughout my entire pregnancy, and I definitely had a completely different experience, and I was able to recover so much faster because of it.
I hear you. And it's like, and it's hard because I feel like, just even having 3 pregnancies, every pregnancy is different between even your own pregnancies, let alone every woman's body and what they're experiencing. So it's really a process of, kind of bio individually finding out like what is your limit, and what is, what capacity do we have to get you in for this, and learning, like you just said, like when you're doing these different movements and you're preparing your body for them so that when it comes time you're able to not get strained, or being able to, get a 9-pound baby out healthily and safely. That's no joke. My son was almost 10 pounds, and
Yep.
it was the point of I didn't even really get a chance to push because of my, like I said, I was not in, I'd like it to say I felt like I was healthy then, but I wasn't, you know what I mean? Like knowing the things
Yeah.
adding up to it. But I feel that it's important for women to know that these things are out there and there are ways to do it, because I think that's so much of the problem with women's health today. I feel like it's not studied enough, and again, at every stage along the way. And you know, I don't think that I don't think women know, like so many people don't know that that there are these options to do a more natural birth that's safer to mom, safer to baby, just overall a healthier practice. But even if you get to that point where you do know that, you still need to do all of the training up into that point, because if you're not doing all of the things to that point to train your body and keep your weight at a good pace, and all of the other things, keeping your muscles where they need to be, all the other strength up, it's almost like you can't get to that end point and be able to do that safely without the other things. And I
Yeah.
have this conversation often with my near and dear friend. She is a doula, and she, same thing, everything is like, where she works with women. She's a massage therapist, and she's constantly having people incorporate these things, especially when the mamas are coming in for their massages and stuff, trying to get them to do, whether they're taking the doula route and they're going and doing it either at home or in a birth center. And learning how to do the things along the way, learning how to get those massages and keep your muscles, relaxed and your muscles strong. And, it's a process. And I just, even for this podcast to just be, awareness for people
Right.
to know that there's places to go.
Yeah.
So, what you do, are you completely like brick and mortar? You're in Nebraska. So are you completely like brick and mortar? Do you see clients virtually? Like, how do you work with your clients?
Yeah, both actually. So we are a brick and mortar here in Lincoln, Nebraska. We have actually started the franchising process. So we've got some discussions in Boise, Idaho. That should go here pretty quick. We've got 2 locations now in Omaha, in the Omaha area. And then we've got conversations in Tennessee, and then we're looking at actually opening some corporate locations in Des Moines, Kansas City, just like kind of obviously all like Midwest, but you know, Idaho and Tennessee are obviously aren't Midwest. So um, stay tuned because we're just growing and you know trying to get to this resource to as many women as possible and in regards to a gym space. So yes, like we are a physical gym. I write all of the programming, I train all of the coaches that you see within each of those individual spaces, but then I also do virtual like one-on-one trainings for clients that are interested in just you know having more of that personal touch, you know, depending on their fitness level. Maybe group fitness isn't for them, or there isn't a location near them. That's something that I absolutely do as well. But you know the programming that we follow, you know, we're talking about prenatal, postpartum obviously, but really like we're big on like all stages of life, right? Like, and when you speak like when you talked about women's health, like, and you're so right, like I think a lot of it is lack of research specific to women, and women being aware that they're not represented in the research, I think is another huge thing. Like just understanding that just because a research article comes out on intermittent fasting or, you know, these different things, like that does not mean that you are represented in that research. You know, hormone replacement therapy, like all of the different things like out there that like have been so you know, fear-based and like just misunderstood when it comes to women's health. Um, and really speaking to like one of the biggest things that we're trying to do is just bring awareness, like you said, like bring awareness to what who we are, but what women's race health is doing right now and what we're lacking and what we need to see change. So empowerment through you know the young athlete side of things, like with I always like go big on like, okay, why are the ACL injuries happening to these young girls so early and consistently? Is it you know they're unaware of the Q angle changes in regards to those directional changes happening so fast that they're you know the Q angle of their hips starts to widen as they're hitting puberty? And if we're not training those outside of the glutes and we're not training like the strengthening around those muscles, we're going to see an increase in injury risk. But also what we know in regards to hormones within the female physiology, like that we're at a higher risk of injury at a certain stage of our cycles too. So like there's just so much lack of like awareness there. You know, just general women's fitness in general. You know, when you're in your 20s and your 30s, like great, do high intensity, do all the things, like lift heavy, you know, recovery isn't quite as important, all of those things. But once you hit into those late 30s, 40s, everything starts to shift and everything needs to shift, and prioritizing strength training has to start to be the focus, and putting on muscle in a way that you can create longevity and create sustainability moving forward. And obviously the prenatal postpartum time period, I think a lot of that is just our culture, you know, Western culture of just like, okay, like we're fragile and broken when we're pregnant. Our doctors are here to save us. We have no autonomy. We're essentially considered ill, like we have an illness or a sickness or a condition, versus like this being probably the most fit physiologically state you will ever be in your life, even if you're not working out. And, you know, physically, like I see women stronger than they've ever been in their entire lives while they're pregnant, to be honest with you. So just flipping the script on that and be like, whoa, like we got this all wrong here. But postpartum, like why do we feel the need to be out shopping and doing everything within 2 days after having a baby? Like lay down. You just brought a baby into this universe. Like take time, take the time to heal. Like you have a wound inside you, you have a wound around you in whatever way that you've delivered. You know, taking the time to slow down and honor your body and let it heal. Like let your body like heal slowly and intentionally so that you can set yourself up for success long term. You know, I was seeing, and I still see people, you know, women that are 10 years postpartum still dealing with issues that they had at 8 weeks postpartum. Like, and because nobody's told them that this is, you know, not normal, because it's so common. All of these things are so common, but they're not normal. So just the way that we are approaching fitness, and that I have really tried to create workouts, and sometimes they're probably boring and slow, and sometimes all we're doing is laying on the ground breathing for an hour, but we're creating some really strong adaptations that are important for the longevity of the individual, and we see the benefits of it long term. So
I love that. So I'm curious because I know probably for me, my age range and a lot of my clients, a lot of our listeners, in the age range of people listening to the podcast are women that are in that age range you just described, the later 30s, heading into your 40s. The body is changing, and it's that perimenopausal age where, you get this label slapped on you. Oh, well, it's normal to have weight gain in your midsection. Oh, it's normal to just be sweating your butt off in the middle of the night. Yeah, it's normal to feel that forgetfulness. You're just take some vitamins. You're fine, blah, blah, blah. That you're fine mentality that you get from the doctor. And a lot of my clients come to me with some of these issues, whether they're just the basic ones of, hey, I either can't lose this weight or I don't know why I'm getting this weight gain. I'm doing all the right things. I'm at the gym 6-7 days a week. I'm eating right. I'm doing everything. What's wrong with me? And, I'm curious to see your opinion on this, because a lot of times it's like, I always recommend heavy weightlifting, like, that resistance training. That's so important as we're entering into this next phase of life, to support muscles, to support bones, and keep our body strong. So that, in addition to, making sure you're keeping your protein intake up. But a lot of times what I see with people is that balance where they're trying to do those things. But in the meantime, you can see that when they're doing different HIIT trainings, whether, they're doing CrossFit or they're doing different things at the gym where they're running their butts off and they're, killing it with cardio, and they can't put the dial down on the scale by like 2 pounds. And a lot of times I feel like, depending on their other lifestyle things, of course, we're taking it all into consideration, but a lot of times it's like cortisol imbalance, where they're looking at, this balance of hormones and cortisol and all these things going on. So, and I obviously, it's not a one size fits all for people, but generally speaking, when women are in this age range and they come to you with that typical quote unquote, oh, you're fine, it's menopause, just whatever, what do you recommend to your clients?
yeah. I think that the world is starting to talk about this a lot. Finally.
I love it.
Right? Like every major podcast, I feel like news outlet, like everywhere we turn, all of a sudden, I think millennials are just like, hello, like,
I'm here. Right?
Like, we got an issue going on over here. No, I think this question is coming. I'm 37. Like for me, myself, like this is coming, down the pipeline for myself, and the women that I serve are fairly close to the same age as me. And yeah, like it is a real thing. Like all of a sudden, everything that you've been doing great and you've been doing well, all of a sudden just isn't working anymore. They're just starting to put on midsection body fat and all of those different things. And places, other gyms and programming tend to prey on that type of stuff quite a bit, and not intentionally. I don't want to say prey in like a negative way. It's just cardio has sold for so long, and high intensity, boot camps and trainings have sold for so long. We have this methodology of like, we just need to work harder, therefore then we'll get the results we need. I think that's like an American thing. But that's not the case with this stage of life. I believe firmly, and it is true firmly, that you will never ever get the goals and reach the goals and achieve the physiology or the body composition or whatever it is for you, the strength training that you want, if you're not able to recover from any adaptation. So the best workout you can do for yourself is the one that you can recover from. And in this stage of life, the cardiovascular, the high intensity interval training, it is very hard for a woman's body to recover from that type of stimulus. So there's nothing wrong with the stimulus itself. It's your ability to recover from that stimulus has now completely changed because of the hormone shifts, and because, like you said, like the cortisol naturally changing in the body, all of those different things. So when they are coming to me, What's unfortunate right now and that we're up against right now is a lot of women that are coming to us aren't very familiar with lifting heavy. They're familiar with strength training in some capacity, but they're not very familiar or feel very comfortable in regards to like a compound heavy lift, like a back squat or a bench press or a deadlift, like these lifts that are like full body movements that we have to be able to like really train intentionally to be able to get to what is heavy for them, not necessarily just heavy in general, but heavy for them. You know, my heavy is going to be different from your heavy, as an example. So first things first is we got to get them used to weightlifting. Like you got to get in the gym and get them introduced to like learning how to actually strength train and learning proper form and learning proper mechanics and learning how your body moves with a weight lift or, you know, with a barbell on your back or with a barbell in your hands. And teaching them how to train intentionally in that way and safely, because you know we can put this recommendation out to, hey, all perimenopause menopause women, you need to be doing compound heavy lifting, and if you've never done it before, good luck. Like, you know, that's just, we're not going to get anywhere with that. So we're big on movement education and quality movement education in a way that we can actually teach women how to lift appropriately for their body. Everybody's different, like femur length, you know, height, all of those different things changes in regards to the way that we lift. So yeah, like, you know, teaching them that first, but yes, getting them to the point where they can do heavy training at least 3 times a week. That's the goal. And that they're able to have about a 48-hour window of recovery between each session. So, you know, in our gym, we run like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday for our menopause program that we have. And they're doing the heavy compound lift where we're, you know, working in sets of, you know, 5 to 6 sets of 3 to 5 reps, maybe maximum. And we're again at that high intensity of lifting where it's requiring complete concentration. We're getting that central nervous system adaptation and firing that kind of starts to go to the wayside as estrogen starts to go down. So we're causing that adaptation with that heavy strength training. And then we'll do some accessory lifts for sure. You know, the fun, like 3 sets of 10 to 12 on like the burp curls and like stuff like that, getting your muscles a little bit more defined. And then 1 to 2 times a week, we do sprint interval training for their cardio. So it's not, again, if you've listened or read anything by Dr. Stacy Sims, she talks a lot about this, but it's not just your traditional steady state cardio. We're going to warm you up and then we're going to have you at maximum effort, some type of sprint. That doesn't mean you're on a treadmill sprinting all the time. It can be a bike, it can be sleds, it can be tires, it can be, you know, hills, it can be incline walk, like whatever that is for that individual. Because the other side of this is the demographic in perimenopause and menopause right now have not addressed their pelvic floor in any way, shape, or form up to this point, right? So we're dealing with not only the lack of like awareness on strength training and compound lifting, but also like pelvic floor issues probably are very prevalent because they weren't referred to a pelvic floor therapist in any way, shape, or form at any point in their life. So, you know, running might not be the most appropriate thing for them. So we're, you know, utilizing different things to get your heart rate to a maximum intensity level for no more than 30 seconds, and then recovering as long as you need to. Sometimes that's 2 or 3 minutes. Sometimes that's 5 minutes, whatever it is. And then you're doing it again. And sometimes twice is probably plenty. Maybe, you know, if you get to the point where you can do, you know, 4 or 5 rounds of that, that's awesome. But that's what's burning and causing a stress in a way that's going to actually like help burn that midsection weight gain and burn the body fat and add muscle to your body and give you the physiological changes that women are really looking for, I think. And then, you know, again, power work, like we want to do explosive things like sleds, tires, like the use it or lose it muscles as much as possible. We want to be able to use those powerful adaptations of our muscles and of our bodies as much as possible, because if we don't, we do start to lose it as we age. And then balance, you know, like learning where you are in space, learning how to, you know, walk backwards, walk forwards, stand on one leg, like finding your proprioception in space and being able to like control your body. So those are like the 4 primary things that we definitely hone in on and focus on here. But again, if you're not recovering from any of those things, then you're not able to give the training adaptation the intensity that it needs, and we're not going to get anywhere. So, you know, if they're not sleeping well at night, like if they're not able to fuel themselves. That's the other thing with that demographic right now is we've been taught to not eat enough food for a really, really long time. So, you know, to have the energy to fuel these sessions requires an adequate amount of calories and sleep and all of those other things. So it's that balance. It's finding, again, creating awareness on like, okay, like everything that you think you know, you probably don't know anymore. And it's probably not working, obviously.
It's so true. And I thank you so much for explaining that as well as you did, because I think that's the best I've ever heard. You know, no, that's the best that I've ever heard what women need in this age range. It's like, you know, people get snippets, or it's kind of like almost the process of how to incorporate it all in together. But it's everybody needs a coach and a trainer to kind of guide them, because it's everybody is different and everybody needs that. And then it's also the lifestyle things. You can't just let sleep and nutrition go by the wayside. It all is like the pieces of the puzzle to put it all together. But the way even that you just described it to people, because people don't understand, you don't know what you don't know. So, you know, being able to, you know, to hear it. So, okay, this is the process. Like, this is what you need to do. You're not doing anything wrong. You're maybe just not doing it in the right order. You're not giving yourself recovery. You're actually doing too much, you know? So, we need you on the East Coast for sure. We need VICTRESS on the East Coast for sure, because so many women just don't understand, and they're trying so hard in every capacity and just can't move the needle and get frustrated. So the fact
No,
that, you know, and the fact that you do what you do and just bringing awareness, let alone bringing a program that people can follow and have success with at any age in life is just amazing. So I thank you for your work. You're amazing.
well, thank you. Thank you. It's pretty cool to like walk in the gym and like see, you know, over, you know, in this big group of, we run up to 20 in a class right now. I think in the future studios, it probably won't be any more than 16, where you've got a coach standing there, like, you know, very well trained in all stages of life and in movement. You know, it has to be both. We have to understand the physiology of the woman going that's, you know, in front of us, but we also have to understand like good movement patterns and what does good movement look like. For different body structures and all of those things. So to walk in and, you know, see a 20-week pregnant woman working out next to a 8-week postpartum woman just coming back in from her rehabilitative program, next to, you know, our, you know, 50-year-old woman with her, you know, partner that's 45 and starting to go into perimenopause, like, and, you know, but then also a large amount of just like 30 to, you know, 27 probably and younger, just all working out in the same space. They're not all doing the same programming. They're all, you know, some of them are obviously doing different things more intentionally for them, but they're all in the same room at the same time with, you know, within this hour of like all focused on being the best versions of themselves and just being intentional with themselves in that space and, you know, giving themselves permission to push each other, but also like hold back if they need to, you know, like, hey, like, you know, my kids were up, even, you know, the moms that are, you know, in their mid 30s that are killing it in the gym every day right now. If their kids were up all night, they probably shouldn't be pushing very hard in the gym right now. Like, again, it all comes down to like, can you recover from the adaptation that you're giving your body at the time? And so it is special. It's very unique, I think, in a lot of ways. I you know, when we first started this, not a whole lot of people were talking this way, and people probably thought I was a crazy lady out there in Lincoln, Nebraska, just trying to get something going. But it is needed. Like, you know, I think a lot of other gyms and trainers are doing a better job about this type of stuff. But, you know, even like the high intensity based gyms, like strength training classes aren't necessarily progressive overloaded strength training. And you need to find a trainer and a or a gym that has that progressive overloaded strength training based physio programming to really know that you're actually like getting results long term. So just like educating women on like, if ultimately, like, if you love running, like, and you're in perimenopause, like, I'm not saying don't run. Like, if you love it, you have to be able to like do what you love. Like, I mean, if you I never want to take that away from somebody. I just want you to choose when you do it, be intentional about how long and how often you do it, and make sure that you're prioritizing the strength training within that. And 2 times a week, you can be dangerous at 2 times a week. It doesn't have to be 3 or 4 times a week, but you can be dangerous at 2 times a week. So just adding that in and getting more, more of this information out there in a tangible way. Because like I said, like if you don't, it's one thing to sit here and say like all women need to lift heavy. Well, if they don't know how to lift heavy, it's that's not even fair. Like that's not fair. Like, okay, like, and then they hurt themselves and then they're not going to be able to do it again. Like, why are we just like throwing that blanket statement out there? Like, how can we educate them on what does that mean and how does that look for you and how can we get you there?
I love that. I love what you're doing. I'm so excited to even just tell my clients about what you're doing and to, follow you. And if it can be a virtual thing, because I know we're obviously not located near each other. But for our listeners, in the show notes, we'll have how to, follow Stacy and get in touch with her and her
Yep.
program. So that will be in the show notes. But I thank you so much for all of the work that you're doing, all the awareness that you're bringing, and you're just amazing. I'm so glad that we had this chat.
Yes, thank you so much. And also, I would love to have you on our podcast here sometime soon if you were interested. I would love to like show you to our people as well, everything that you're doing. I've listened to your work and it's amazing. I love seeing other women like leaning into like maybe the spaces that some might feel uncomfortable and like actually start to really bring truths to stuff. So it's amazing. Thank you for what you're doing as well.
Oh, yes, I'm in. That sounds awesome. Let's do it.
Awesome. All right.
All right, Cece, have a great day.
Thank you. You too.